A few years ago, I was at a national youth ministry conference. I said, the reason teenagers leave the faith isn't rebellion. It's because nobody created a safe space for them to actually explore it. And then I said the harder thing. They couldn't create that space because their youth pastor or their parent hadn't done that work themselves. You can only lead people to where you've been. And then the room just went quiet. Because every person in the room had watched kids leave, and they'd been explaining it the wrong way. In this episode, I want to explain what's actually happening. And it's not bad influences, it's not weak faith, it's a developmental position. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. I call it the performer. I'm Dr. Lem Usita, and I study adolescent identity formation. This is episode 3 in a series that I'm calling Formation and Phones. Today's episode specifically addresses parents raising teenagers in faith households, but the performer pattern I'm going to explain applies broadly. The research framework I'm using comes from James Marcia's work in identity development. And what I'm about to show you explains one of the most painful patterns I see in families who did, by any measure, everything right. If you've been searching for why teenagers leave the church, or why a kid who seemed so solid fell apart in college, or what you could have done differently, this episode is the most direct answer I can give you. In episode 2, I introduced the 4 identity positions. Today, I want to stay on one of them, the performer. It's what James Marcia calls foreclosure, high commitment, low exploration. This teenager knows what they believe. They show up, they say the right things, they don't give you trouble about faith. And from the outside, it looks exactly like the goal, but commitments were borrowed, not built. They adopted the faith of their family and the community without ever genuinely wrestling with whether it was theirs. That's not faith that holds. That's faith that hasn't been tested. The performer tends to produce 2 things. First, it produces arrogance, not always the loud kinds. Sometimes it's just quiet certainty, an inability to sit with complexity, a tendency to dismiss questions rather than engage them, a posture of already knowing. Performer teenagers are often celebrated in their faith community because they seem settled, but the settlement is borrowed, and borrowed settlement is brittle. Second is collapse. When real questions arrive, and they always do, there's no framework for holding them. The whole structure breaks at once. This is the teenager who deconstructs in college, not because they were weak, because they were never taught to explore. And that exploration didn't happen at 12 in your home with you in the room. It happened at 22 in a dorm room, far away, in an environment that may have no interest in helping them find their way back. The exploration was always coming. The only question was where. Most Christian parents are not trying to produce performers. They love their kids. They want their kids to have genuine faith. But many of the ways Christian parenting gets practiced work directly against exploration. When a teenager asks a hard question about suffering, about doubt, about something they read or heard, and the response is to answer it quickly, redirect to certainty, or treat the question itself as a spiritual problem, that teaches something. It teaches the questions are dangerous, that doubt is disloyal, that the way to be a good Christian kid is to commit and not question. So the teenager learns to perform commitment. And the exploration doesn't go away. It goes underground and it waits. You can't govern exploration, but you can mentor it. The difference is everything. A mentor stays curious, asks questions that go deeper, sits with the discomfort of genuine uncertainty without needing it to resolve immediately. A governor shuts things down, answers too fast, treats questions as problems to be corrected. One produces a teenager who brings the hard questions home. The other produces a performer who waits until they can ask them somewhere else. The most important question you can ask yourself right now is this: does my teenager believe I can handle their questions? Because if the answer is no, the questions aren't going away. They're just not coming to you. Now, genuine faith formation requires exploration. That's not a threat to faith. That's the path toward faith that holds. A teenager who has genuinely wrestled, who has brought the hard questions home, sat with the uncertainty, and arrived at faith through that process is not more likely to leave. They're dramatically less likely because the faith is actually theirs. They're not a performer anymore. They're becoming rooted. And the rooted teenager doesn't perform their faith, they live it. The goal is not protecting your teenager from questions. The goal is being present when they ask them. Now, in the next episode, I'm going to get practical. What does it actually look like when access has outpaced formation? What are the signs that the foundation isn't ready? And what do you do when you realize you gave the phone before the formation was in place? Now, download the free identity formation assessment in the link below. There's a specific section on commitment and exploration that will help you see whether your teenager's position is borrowed or built. That's the first thing that you can do. And I'll put the link to the assessment in the description. The second thing is, did this episode name something you've been watching but couldn't explain? Whether it's your teenager or honestly yourself growing up when you were a teenager. I would love to hear it. I read all the comments. And then lastly, subscribe for episode 4, where I get specific about what to watch for when digital access has outpaced formation. And then in episode 5, the constructive one, what readiness actually looks like. And again, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If there's someone that you know that needs to watch this, please share it with them. And please let me know in the comments what you think. And as always, don't forget, be unique, but belong. Thanks for watching.